Welcome to Old Man Blerd. Hi, I'm John, and along with my friend Terrence, we make up a pair of lifelong geeks who happen to be black, over 50, but are certainly nerds first and foremost. The Alpha Geek and the Omega Freak. And we welcome everyone. And by everyone, we mean nerds, blerds, and bleaks, cosplayers and role players, geeks and freaks, Marvel zombies and distinguished competitors, Trekkies, Star Warriors, Batmaniacs, and Spider fans, Warhams, Whovians, AFOLs, adult fans of Legos, Tolkienites, Weeaboos, Supernatural hunters and otakus, Ava geeks, Bro Stars and Sis Stars, Pokemon trainers, Potterheads, Bronies, Whovians, Browncoats, and Scoobies, and all nerd properties in between. Because we are over 50, we've seen a thing or two, and have experience, long experience, with a lot of these properties. So thank you for listening to Old Man Blerd.
So, hello, this is a very late episode coming to you of Old Man Blerd. A lot had happened since this recording and the last recording. This was recorded, I believe, just after President Trump, ex-President Trump, was shot. So around July 14th. We will be joining you with new episodes. It's been a bit. Life exploded. So tons of things requiring me to handle instead of Old Man Blerd and Saki and Hawker podcast and the Esoteric Lounge and new episodes of that. So Quantum. So I apologize for that. But here is an episode of Old Man Blerd from July 14th. I do hope you enjoy. Since then, I have beaten Elden Ring and started the DLC. I did see Deadpool and Wolverine, thought it was great, and I have since picked up the newest iteration of the Uncanny X-Men, which I haven't read yet, but I will soon. I believe we mostly talk about everything, like usual, rambling nerds that we are, so please do enjoy. There he is.
Howdy.
Howdy, howdy. How are you?
I'm all right. How about you?
I'm tired. It's been a week.
I know. Boring.
It's been a week. Uneventful, completely uneventful. Nothing much going on. The weekend of the 13th, 14th, and 12th, I guess you could count, Friday the 12th. Wasn't Friday the 13th. I guess being slightly facetious, yes, the past president, Donald Trump, was shot at. And we're going to do the, Old Man Blerd. It's all nerd stuff. This isn't the Politics podcast, but we did want to give a shout out, hoping that he is doing well and everything's hunky-dory there. No reason for political violence. And the most important thing, arguably, for some of us is that we're just glad it wasn't a person of color.
There are just some places we really don't want to be diversified.
I just to tell an open secret, I think anyone who is a person that's LGBTQIA plus or a BIPOC, person of color, anytime something really bad goes down, you're just kind of going, oh, I really, really hope it's not a black person. Please don't be a black person. Because, and then all the people say, okay, time for a race war. And it looks like we've avoided that for the time being. But this is Old Man Blerd. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, nerds and blerds of all stripes, ages, races, nationalities, orientations. This is a podcast where two elder statesmen of the world of nerdydom reminisce and complain and discuss and hopefully occasionally enlighten things that relate to all of the sort of nerdy things that are out there, the world of Lego, Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Dungeons and Dragons, Warcraft, video games, voice acting, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, all of the things. So, that said, intro done. What nerdy things, blurdy things have you been up to for the last 7 days, Terrence?
Nothing. It was actually boring this week. I just played my little Switch. That was it.
That's it?
That's it. I was boring. I worked. I know, terrible.
Man, that is sort of somewhat discouraging. Actually, I didn't really do very much at all. I did get some packs of One Piece OP07. I got nothing really cool, both in terms of playing and in terms of value. But that's fine. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to come by that stuff. It's like you're not gonna, all of the resellers are buying all of the products up, and so much for that. So I don't get to get very much of anything.
Yeah.
So there's that. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, trying still to beat the Elden Ring, beat the Elden Beast, last boss. I just don't seem to have enough energy. I might have to recalibrate my stats so that I can try and actually beat it so that I can then justify getting the DLC for Elden Ring. Can't completely justify it when I haven't beaten the game. I've beaten most of the bosses. I just haven't beat the final boss. And it's very difficult. He's very pretty and hard to, you're like, oh, he's doing a thing. How neat. Oh, wait, he's killing me. So
Yeah,
it's
that's not good.
that's not so good. Are you excited about the Deadpool Wolverine movie? This one, I think we're gonna have this Old Man Blerd episode mostly be back and forths about news and events. There's a lot of stuff that's been
Well,
hitting
this
us.
is
So
the G Fest weekend.
it's
The
what
Godzilla
fest?
convention. G Fest.
Oh,
The
where's
Godzilla
that at?
Con weekend in Chicago.
Oh, is it fairly big? How many people attend that typically?
Much smaller
Fest.
scale, I think, is about between like 15 and 30,000, but we
Still
like it
pretty
that
good.
scale, don't we?
Yeah, that's still
Just
pretty
big
good.
enough to stay around, but not big enough that you go get lost in the crowd.
There is a new anime that is, I think I forgot what it's called, something kaiju, where they fight kaiju. That's what they do. And it's really quite popular. I'll have to do a search for it while we're talking, but it's like a kaiju anime that just got
Mm,
released. And I think you would Kaiju number 8, I think is what it's called.
that's the one.
Yeah, Kaiju number 8. It's a world in which monsters named Kaiju regularly cause disasters, and the country Japan, of course, is has the highest rates of Kaiju attacks in the world, and they establish an anti-Kaiju defense force. But it's supposed to be very good. Kaiju number 8.
Space Patrol.
Yeah, Space Patrol Luluco.
Space Patrol Ultraman.
Oh, well, so
or Science
it,
Patrol. Sorry, Science
I
Patrol.
I have to admit I prefer my kaiju in movie form. Is that wrong?
No.
I tend to I like to see the buildings dwarf in size and
But we're
them.
talking about anime. I mean, come on. Sometimes the detail they do is just
Oh, true,
almost almost the same. Kudos.
true. The anime is probably that. I guess it was influenced by or I guess it was a manga first. So
Yeah.
and that
People
then
that they don't always do right in anime, but the background is
oh
amazing
yeah.
sometimes.
Depends on the studio. If it's a real tight studio like what is it, UFO Table or Kyo Annie, they have crazy sort of backgrounds and special effects, and I mean they're top tier for sure. For those of you, I think UFO Table, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I've only read it. I believe is the one that does, the Demon Slayer stuff, that is really popular right now. And the animation is really, really good. So, but I don't know. I'm trying to check out if it's produced by the same folks that do Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I haven't been practicing my Japanese for a while. I've been stuck in French for and let it be said, Duolingo, they're sort of an abusive partner. They yell at you all the time if you don't practice.
Culture wise, since we're going to mention language for a second,
Uh-huh.
I have in sociology, my little specialty, I've noticed that blacks are more prone for Japanese and French
Interesting.
outside of English.
Huh.
We are more quicker to learn those two languages.
I wonder, well, I think if you're going to go with a colonizer, as some people would call England, France, and Spain, I kind of would. I feel a little softer towards France for whatever reason. Speaking of which,
Well,
I sort of sports nerd stuff. I did not watch the Euros 2024. I have another little podcast, the Saki and Hawker podcast. Yes, I'm pronouncing it correctly, where it's the soccer and hockey is what I talk about. And I haven't talked about the Euros at all. But the final was today. And for those who are fans, spoiler, the final was Spain and England. And I didn't have a horse in that race, man. I
speaking of which,
I kind of always root against England. I love England, love English football, but I always feel like England feels kind of like, oh, we're supposed to win because we started this whole thing. It's like Canada and hockey. I love them, but you kind of want to root against them a little bit. And I don't like Spain particularly. I wanted France and the Netherlands. That's not what I got.
well, you do know that I'm from Detroit and we had the top undocumented immigrant program with the Red Wings.
Oh, the Red Wings? Yeah. The Red Wings are one of the original six. So, I don't like Detroit Red Wings because I'm from Colorado. I'm from Colorado and I'm obligated morally as an Avs fan of one of my many 4 or 5 teams I like. You can't like the Red Wings. You're not supposed to like the Red Wings.
I am from Detroit. I am loyal. I am not fair weather.
Well, you know what? I will then I will invite you to see the Red Wings when they play the Avs. I'll pay for it. We'll go see it.
It'd be great.
And I will wear my Avs jersey. I don't know if you have a Detroit Red Wings jersey, but and then I can mock you when they lose.
Well, might be turn or about the other way.
That's I don't know. Detroit's been kind of dog poo for a bit. They used to be.
That's why I'm loyal.
Yeah, they used to be phenomenal.
God, yeah.
They haven't been phenomenal for a while. And I don't think they made much in the trade. But that is stuff for the Saki and Hawker podcast, the only soccer and hockey podcast that I know of. And I only do it on occasion. And I've totally been slack because I have the Euros and the Copa America, which I could be talking about right now, but I'm not. Because for whatever reason, I'm just gassed. I'm tired. And this is a nerd podcast and not a sports nerd podcast. So those are the nerd things that I've done. But there's lots and lots of news. Like I said, are you going to go see Deadpool and Wolverine? I'd meet with you next weekend if you want to go.
We can try to set it up.
Do you think it's going to be a multiverse-y thing?
Yes.
You think they're going to introduce other X-Men?
In the background.
Like you'll just see Jubilee walking in the background, or
just like when they had it in Deadpool and they went to X-Men mansion, and they're like, it's like nobody's ever here, and the whole cast was in that one room
Hmm.
where the Beast closed the door quietly.
Yes, right. It's like, oh, there's a bunch. Yeah, they're really good about giving you the Easter eggs. But this would be the introduction of the X-Men to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because this Deadpool takes place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
No,
He doesn't. It's the Marvel Cinema. I thought that he's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
no,
It's not Sony that's doing it though. Or am I?
no.
I'm probably, to be fair, ladies and
It's the
gentlemen,
20th Century Fox before Disney acquired it.
Deadpool is?
Yes.
Huh.
Same with X-Men and Fantastic Four.
Okay. So are they
Yeah.
trying to bring him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Since they have acquired him, yes. It's the same problem we have with Universal owning the Hulk.
Sure. We have some Hulk news too, I think. Speaking of which, but because I thought these Deadpool movies weren't like Sony or anything else, that they were in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they hadn't introduced anything specifically to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're kind of their own little pocket thing going on, kind of like Iron Fist and Power Man and Daredevil and all that. It's like it's technically in the same universe, but
No,
they
no,
haven't.
the Defenders was part of the Marvel universe because they were it through Netflix.
Sure,
But
but not Deadpool.
Deadpool was part of the X-Men
Well, I
20th
know it.
Century Fox universe.
Okay, so it is there. The rights were owned by 20th Century Fox.
Right.
Huh. That's weird. Well, that tells you how much I like Deadpool, because I kind of think he's just sort of Spider-Man 2.0, and I prefer Spider-Man 1.0. And so I never got into Deadpool. Deadpool happened with the whole Lee Field image guys doing all of the X titles. And at that
Right.
point, I was like, I had jumped ship. I basically stopped reading X. I had started reading X-Men with Byrne and Claremont,
Yes.
and I
128
stopped.
was my issue.
Yeah, and my first issue was, I think, 139. It was
So it
pretty
was right
close
after
to the. Yeah,
Phoenix
it was.
done.
Yeah, I mean, like I had just missed Phoenix, those issues. I mean, I went back, of course, but I mean, I had just missed buying those issues at the store. So my first one was the one where it's like Kitty Pryde. Hope you enjoy your experience at X-Men, where goes to the danger room and everything's freaked out, and she freaks out, and Angel is kind of a jerk and decides Logan's a jerk and wants to leave the X-Men, and then he kind of does. Spoilers. I don't know if I should say spoilers for something that's, I guess, 30 some
20
odd
plus
years
years
old.
old.
Yeah, quite a ways. At least well, 35 years old, I think,
Yeah,
or
because I mean
more,
that was
or
back when they
more.
had the X-Men Kitty Pryde cover that they loved to have with the most wanted mutants.
Yeah, yeah. So that was my first one, and then I stopped literally at like first Jim Lee, I think. I mean,
See, I
I
stopped. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I stopped when they started doing the crossovers.
Yeah,
In other
that
words, we started buying books that you had no desire to buy.
yes,
None.
that's right when I jumped ship. I got spotty around Fall of the Mutants.
Hmm.
I was kind of less spotty around Inferno,
Hmm.
but that was about the time when I was like, I mean, so I'm pretty sure my last issue was pretty close to first Gambit, or maybe even before that. And so Gambit was never a dude for me. None of the X-Force stuff was my jam. So Deadpool was just not my thing. I mean, I think it was fine. I think he's irreverent. Ooh, he says naughty things. But for me, it feels very generationally like different. Like to me, right at that time, I was like, you know what? Marvel is really boring right now. I'm going to go to Vertigo. And that's when I started reading Swamp Thing and Watchmen and Dark Knight Batman and Sandman and all of the stuff that eventually became Vertigo. because I was,
Hmm.
20 when that stuff was happening. So I mean, maybe, I mean, if you've been reading comic books since you were 11, by the time you're 20, you're kind of like, I need something else, I think. I mean, some of us. And for me, it was like, I don't need guys whose pecs are, their chest is bigger than their head. Yeah, not my jam. And so
Wow.
I kind of lumped Deadpool into that. But I do want to see Wolverine, and I do want to see what that interaction will be and whether they start to bring the X-Men into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which they should have done a long time ago. Which
Also, they
they kind of did in Doctor Strange because they showed Professor X.
well, I mean, they also did in Wolverine when they had Deadpool played by Ryan Reynolds the first time,
Yeah.
but it was not the same character
No.
variant in the truest sense.
No, he was a totally different thing, and they kind of messed it up. And then I think he has a real interest in doing that character, and I mean that's fine. I mean, I'm absolutely showing my age because Deadpool was just something that I'm not like some Puritan or anything that like, oh, his humor offends me, but it just never was my thing. Not completely. I mean, my X-Men is really the X-Men post Jean Grey, pre, gosh, I guess pre all of the Genosha stuff. So I mean, my X-Men is Rogue and Colossus and Nightcrawler and Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm with
See,
Professor X being in a wheelchair.
my X Men is Franklin from the Fantastic Four.
Okay,
As far as being a mutant, when he
sure,
started to have his god powers and did a Rubik's cube in one panel,
sure,
I or when X Men had anybody could be a mutant. You could eat a cell phone, and that was your mutant ability. Nothing else, but you
sure,
could eat a cell phone, and that was mutant ability. I
sure,
like that because to me that was more realistic. Everything wasn't an earth-shattering power,
sure.
but sometimes it was embarrassing, sometimes it was painful, but nonetheless, it was never earth-shattering, and that's why I like during the Byrne era, in the Claremont era. But
Well, you know who did a really good job of that was Grant Morrison. Like Grant Morrison had people that just had like, butterfly wings or dragonfly wings or a bird beak or,
yeah,
he,
yeah, he did do that when he
he
did the X-Men Evolution.
yeah, I think he's the responsible for bringing in armor, or the person that was like a skeleton with a blob around it and
Yeah.
all kinds of, it was like, oh, these are some weird X-Men. And Frank Quitely was such a great artist that I did come back to the X-Men for that. I
Yeah,
did.
that's why I liked it because at that time I liked that just like I liked the Green Lanterns. In this is a segue, but it's truth. As in the Green Lantern, to me, is pure science fiction
Sure,
because one of the Green Lanterns is nothing more than a living mathematical equation of willpower.
sure. Or there's a planet, or that's a squirrel looking dude, or yeah, I
Yeah,
mean a diamond looking thing. I mean,
exactly.
Green Lantern's got Wiggy too, which was great. And I think that was good stuff. And I think that Grant Morrison was sort of responsible for doing a really good run for that too, actually. He had done like he made it sort of a police procedural thing.
Yes.
That was kind of because Green Lanterns, I feel like DC hasn't always known what to do with that. And also that segues into the news about, did you see Guy Gardner's costume for the new Superman?
No, I haven't.
No, you should check it out. They have sort of, I guess, pictures on the set of some of the characters that are going to be in the newest Superman, that reboot that is being done, and they show Guy Gardner's costume, and it's kind of Guy Gardner-ish. I won't spoil it for you, but take a look at it. It is they're slowly but surely releasing set photographs. I have great hopes for it. I think as long as they, I think they might have missed their window, because I think The Boys is to the Marvel Cinematic Universe what Watchmen and Dark Knight were to regular comics. It's kind of like, oh, the deconstruction's happening. So once the deconstruction happens, you don't have a whole lot of time. Your window of opportunity is that window's closing. So people will always go see superhero films. We've talked about that in other podcasts, but it definitely seems like maybe it's shutting down. So I have good hopes for it, because if you throwing in a Green Lantern and throwing in Superman and throwing in Hawkgirl and throwing in characters from the Authority, I'm curious.
Well, see, my thing is, and it's the only thing I have I don't want to say against, but I'm not pleased with Gunn when he came in. He basically said, "I am in command,"
Mm-hmm.
and what I have against that is that they had so many people who were impassioned, the actors,
Mm-hmm.
about certain parts
Mm-hmm.
that he should have let them. If nothing else, I'm not saying stop doing what you're doing, but it goes back to Toho.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do DC. You had one of the greatest animation superhero departments.
Mm-hmm.
Do Snyderverse as animation from here on. Finish up the story. Because one of the things we have discussed is why should I watch this if it's not going to be finished or
Sure.
wasting my time? So you
Sure.
finish that because that's one of the things. Fantasy of fantasy. If you had money, two things I would do is one, I would start a company to finish stories,
Mm-hmm.
and story doesn't always have to end with a character's death. It doesn't always have to end with you know losing powers or anything. I'm not talking just nerd. I'm talking about even just ordinary characters. But just to know, as one comedian did with her final season, which she said on the Tonight Show, was very realistic. She said, we've been on this little journey on a plane ride, and it's time for us to get off.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's so many things they story wise they could do. I mean, the best example is My Name Earl. Earl is probably one of the easiest stories to do. You just have a standard story line and have like a 30-second segue where Earl's story is he doesn't even have to be alive and say that the foundation finished all his little karma projects.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
And
you name checked a great series, by the way. I'm a big fan of that show. I thought everybody in it was good. They were at Fan Expo, weren't they? I
which
think
is
they. I think
yes,
the
which is another segue.
segue number three. So, uh, as of this recording, Shannon Doherty passed away, and Richard Dreyfuss
He's in the hospital.
is in the hospital, and both of them were at Fan Expo.
Yes.
Um, I feel uh Shannon Doherty, I mean, Charmed was, I never watched Charmed that much. My wife watched, I believe, the whole thing. And said that it was pretty good. I think that um I know in terms of her nerd cred, she was in some nerd properties for sure. Charmed probably being the most popular of all of them.
Yes.
And she had fought cancer just for a while, and it just got, I think it just overwhelmed her. And so uh definitely sending out all the good energy and good thoughts to her friends and family and people that have worked with her, because she was um fellow person on this planet, traveling that we're traveling on, flying through space, orbiting the sun while it's also flying through space. So
Right.
best travels for her. um but do you think it was something that they got at Fan Expo? Not her, but maybe Dreyfus.
No, it's just bad timing. But
Yeah,
nonetheless,
the
makes
Fan Expo curse.
I won't even go that route. I just think, those of us, like we said, we couldn't go because, we had other things to do, like editing.
Sure. I had
We know we're not going to get that
saving
autograph.
saving money. Yeah, that's true. Um, for me, my first introduction to Shannon Doherty was one of my all-time favorite movies, Heathers. Remember
Yes.
Heathers? I loved
Yes.
Heathers. I had sort of a crush on Winona Ryder, possibly because um I had a crush on a woman in school that looked like her, that we dated for a while. Um, And so I think that exacerbated my crush on Winona Ryder. But anyway,
As we discussed before, imprinting, friend.
sure. So I had a crush on this person. I won't mention them because, privacy and all that sort of thing. But I had a crush on this person in high school. Reminded me a great deal of Winona Ryder, which then made me sort of have more of a crush on Winona Ryder. But Heathers helped because Heathers was such a good movie. I mean, that was just right up my alley. Dark humor. It was just great. I hope they never remake it. They might. I mean, I guess there's another Beetlejuice coming out.
Well,
Speaking of,
yeah, but that's a sequel. That's not a reboot or a remake.
which
And
is
we
great.
we we don't mind sequels as
Sequels are
long as it
fine.
makes sense with the character. As long as it makes sense with the character. I mean, just to do it like what is it? Thanks Juan Fu for the memories. Is that it? Wonton Fu for the memories.
Oh, to Wong Fu. Thanks for the
Thanks for the
memories,
memories.
Julie Newmar. Julie.
Yes, Julie Newmar. Yeah, that
Yeah.
doesn't need a sequel. That doesn't need a sequel.
Well, and it was a
Because it's
remake anyway. So it was a
too
remake
tight.
of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, I believe.
Right. But I'm saying it was too tight of a story that
Sure.
you really can't, you know, change it too much.
But I will see the new Beetlejuice. I won't do like our representative Lauren Boebert when I see Beetlejuice. But I
Please
will.
don't. Please
Yeah,
don't.
no, they would arrest me and throw me under the jail. So if I had done those same things, but yeah. So it'll be kind of sweet because I think that Winona Ryder is only like I think maybe a year or two older or than I am. I think.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
completely age appropriate when I had a crush on her. So, and now she's in Stranger Things, and Stranger Things that's coming soon, isn't it? Is it next year or this year?
This next year is that weird season where you got September, January. So they're
Oh,
wrapping up.
so that it'll be next calendar year that we watch it?
No, I mean it'll be
This
starting
calendar
like
year.
in yes, at the towards the last quarter of the year.
Oh, I see. So fall season, basically.
Right. The
Oh,
same
okay.
thing with
That's good
Superman and Lois.
because if they waited any longer, I don't think very many excuse me, many people would be like, "What? Stranger what? I don't remember." I mean, those kids are going to be old because they were the last season that I saw them in, they were all like 6 feet tall. So,
Well, no, I mean what you're saying is the natural progression of growth, so we can't get around that. And
no,
I mean, it's the same thing about why are we watching these things? Because we want to see the characters. And like I said, Superman and Lois is coming out in October. But again, you know, Discovery, Warner Brothers is hurting themselves
sure.
because they could take the way of Toho
Hmm.
and keep that going. You know, I guess the thing I did do is I watched My Adventures of Superman yesterday, the cartoon, the
Oh,
anime.
see. Oh, I haven't been catching up with the newest cartoon. Is that The
Well,
Adventures of Superman? I saw the
yes,
first 3 or 4 episodes where uh Lois, I think, went to like sort of a parliament of Loises. Is that
yes.
the same one? Yeah. I need to watch some more episodes of that. I thought it was great. I mean, Superman gets dissed quite a bit, and we've talked about, and we've already offered our fix. So Superman's fixed in our minds, in the blurred continuity. We've fixed Superman. Look at a previous episode. We fixed Superman. We'll fix other things too, but we fixed Superman. So, I do need to catch up on that, and
Well, they did
maybe
one interesting twist that has never been done before.
we
Just
did.
one, yes, one interesting, slightest twist you could never imagine. They did one little twist. They've
Oh,
never
who
done
did?
before.
Oh, in
The,
the cartoon.
right.
Oh, what'd they do? Oh, well, spoilers, spoilers.
Yeah.
What'd they do?
Kryptonians are warlike.
Oh, so they're kind of trying to bite off a little bit of the Invincible style.
They know they had a Kryptonian empire.
Sure.
And as their plan is being destroyed, in a hologram, Jor-El was telling him, hey, we were destroyed because we picked one fight with one place that fed us our butt. And we're like, wow,
And what?
wow. Well,
Oh, and so that's foreshadowing that there's this race out there that. Now, what is? Refresh my memory. Mon El, not a Kryptonian, Legion of
no,
Superhero. Where is he from?
uh, there are two races that are elf-like in DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
and that's humans and Kryptonians.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, in D&D, elves can sleep with anything.
Sure.
Yeah,
Half
Kryptonians are the
elves.
same. Yeah, they basically slept with this race called the Dolomites.
And that's where
And
you
so,
get Mon-El.
right.
So, okay. Because
Mhm.
Mon-El's supposed to be pretty powerful. He's Superman level of, you know,
Yes.
ability. He's a Kryptonian on that level.
Mhm.
Huh. Well, I'm excited to see what they do with Superman because I think that if they come out the gate with it being fresh and positive, with some smiles and some humor, it would be better. They need to do that. So check out the site. The set pictures of Guy Gardner's costume. There's that, and there is also the new Captain America, where I guess the president basically says to Sam, "Bud, you're no Steve Rogers." He does the I've worked with Steve Rogers, I know Steve Rogers, and you, sir, are no Steve Rogers. Lloyd Benson kind of to Dan Quayle kind of vibe. And I
Yeah.
believe the poster shows a red hulkish hand crushing the shield. So I think we're
Well,
gonna get
yeah,
some
that's supposed to be Harrison Ford.
think we're gonna get some Red Hulk.
Yep,
And
that's supposed to be
Red
Harrison
Hulk
Ford.
was because I like the Hulk and I always give the Hulk a chance. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure all of you have some superhero character or some property, Star Wars maybe, where you just give it a chance regardless of all of the proof that should show you that you shouldn't give it a chance anymore. And I give the Hulk ample amounts of chances because I do like the idea of the character quite a bit. And so, Red Hulk, that could be interesting, you know. Red Hulk is, I mean, I'm lukewarm on the Red Hulk thing because once I found out it was Thunderbolt Ross, which is what I thought it was during the whole, yeah, spoilers, Red Hulk's Thunderbolt Ross. If you don't know that, I don't know what to tell you. It's going on 15 years at this point. The Red Hulk stuff. Um, and Ed McGuinness did the artwork for it. I loved Ed McGuinness when he did Superman. He did that run on Superman for a while that had the Bizarro and the Emperor Joker stuff and all that. Um,
Mm.
and the Red Hulk's fine. It's not the greatest concept because Thunderbolt Ross always had a mustache and Red Hulk never had a mustache, but so it was kind of like when you were reading it, trying to figure out who the Red Hulk was, it was like, well, it can't be Thunderbolt Ross. He has a mustache. I was like, no, I guess it burns off. His hair is fine, stays crew cut, military crew cut, but no mustache.
It's one of those things we don't know. It's one of those things. Do you let it bother you or not? Because I mean, let's be honest, we're not looking at this because of reality.
And that's true. I look at it because I kind of would like a mustached, no beard Hulk because that just looks so 70s to me. It's
Let's
like,
see,
oh,
this
it looks so cop, 1970s cop to me. It's like, oh, mustache, no beard. There you go. That's a look. That is a
well,
look.
this is so another segue because, as you know, Thunderbolt Ross, the middle actor,
Uh-huh.
died, and that's when they
Who?
went and chose Harrison Ford.
Okay, so if I recall correctly, William Hurt was Thunderbolt Ross in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
There was somebody after that. Was it like Sam Elliott or somebody? I don't remember.
Sam Elliott was actually before William Hurt because he did
Okay.
the Universal Hulk movie.
Okay. So there was Sam Elliott, then there was William Hurt, then there was another person,
Then there's Harrison Ford.
and then there's Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford probably, who's at this point like, I'm just gonna do one movie a year, and then I can keep paying for things. I don't even know. Does he
Well,
have children? Maybe he does.
yes, he does.
Oh, okay. With Calista Flockhart or whatever.
Well, she had a child when he married her, but he had children before that.
Ah, well, and now he's going to be in a Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I think all of Hollywood's like, ugh, Marvel movies. But you
Oh
know,
yeah, because I mean, the other news flash I got is that they were ending What If on the third season, and to
which
me that's stupid.
was which is really dumb, I think, because I think
Yeah, because there's
most
endless
fans really
stories.
liked it.
There's endless stories,
Yeah,
endless.
most fans really dig it. I think what it is that they're drunk on they're getting high on their own supply and they need to have constant hit after hit. So they need something to do $1 billion overseas, and What If is just not that kind of property.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but what if is going to be basically your water? It's not going to be your bread, you know what I mean, or your meat and potatoes, but it's going to be your water. You're always going to get something from it.
Well, and I don't know, did you read a lot of What If? Because I read a ton of What
Oh,
If.
What If was one of my favorites.
I mean, What If was so good. I even remember reading the What If, the spoof issue. I mean, I read all those What Ifs. It was like, what if Elektra had lived? What if Spider-Man was a member of the Fantastic Four? What if
Right. Then it
Korvac?
became the Fantastic Five.
Yeah,
And
what
what
if
if Spider-Man had stopped the killer of Uncle Ben?
Yeah, there was
What
tons. Yeah.
Doctor Doom had become Sorcerer Supreme, killing Doctor Strange,
Yeah, I mean, there
personally
was a
anyway.
ton of the What If Phoenix Had Lived? That was a really good one. I still have that one. What if Wolverine killed the Hulk? I still have that one.
Hmm.
Those were really good issues because it was like, oh yeah, that changes a lot. And there were they never ended happily for the most part.
Once in a while, once in a while,
Once in a while they
it
would.
was like the Outer Limits. It was not Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone was a crapshoot. You could have a happy ending episode and you could have a sad episode. But the Outer Limits was like 70% Doom and 30%. Hey, that's not so bad.
Yeah. Whereas I guess it was like the Outer Limits. You are correct because it was definitely much more, oh, we're going to have um yeah, 70% of the stories were ended negatively.
Yeah,
You
because they
know.
basically wanted to justify the decisions that they made that people complained about. That was it.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
some cases, it wasn't that as much as it would just get rid of the essence of the character, as in Spider-Man's stopping the person that killed Uncle Ben.
Sure.
Because I mean, he became a dickhead.
Yeah. I feel like they did more Avengers ones than just about anything else. Avengers and maybe Spider-Man. They didn't do a whole lot of they did some Daredevil. I do seem to remember What If the Clone Had Lived, which it turned out it did.
Yeah,
So
well, my favorite one of them all was what if the Avengers really aged? Even though Mad kind of did a parody of that, what superheroes
sure.
age. But it was interesting because Steve Rogers was the last human on the Avengers. Uh, and they did like three or four stories in that one book. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Like they had one where it was Antonio Stark. It was like, I think he was like a nephew to Tony Stark. He wasn't even his son. And then they had another one which was his son. And then they had another one which was a emgramic hologram living in the suit.
Sure. I seem to remember what wasn't there one like what if Daredevil joined Shield?
Yes.
There was something like
Yes.
that. I think Frank Miller did the artwork for that one. Um, yeah, so it was
Mhm.
great. And What If the show would be great, but I feel like there's always this tension that do we want to be comic booky or not? And they've allowed the Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, the whole Miles Morales animated shows, they've allowed those to be full-on comic booky. They do all the comic book tropes of the multiverse or this alter egos and everything else. They do all of the things in those, and even with the artwork that they use. But the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they try to keep it kind of
Grounded.
filmy. Well, I guess filmy. I think that's one of the reasons why the Deadpools were so popular is because they kind of stayed comic booky.
Well, Top Secret, the role playing game by TSR, now
Mm-hmm.
not TSR because of politics or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they one of their last books in the original run, and I use this as a guide of mentally thinking about fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
There are three grades, and I think I mentioned this before. There are three grades of reality that they use. I'll say there's five, but there's three. And there's gritty, moderate, and fantastic. Now, gritty would be Death Wish or RoboCop.
Mm-hmm.
You can die by breaking your pinky finger and having the bone go to your heart. Something
Sure.
just totally absurd. And the moderate would be like the $6 Million Man, the Knight Rider,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Fantastic. Now they try to keep it at a low grade level, but it'd be like the 1938 Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
And then I
go
was going to
on.
say, then you have Mundane is Us. Mundane is Us, and Zenith is like, Star Trek, or Godzilla is my best friend. I mean, just totally over the top.
And but do you think that they've settled on a vision? Because it feels like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if it's not the Deadpool and maybe not Doctor Strange, they don't get super comic booky, really.
No,
They,
they don't. I mean, they have set perimeters or what they want to do, for lack of a better term.
mm-hmm,
But by the same token, as you point out, they don't know. And it's not they don't know. I mean, the best example was during Spider-Man's No Way Home,
mm-hmm,
because when they were making fun of Doctor Octopus's name,
mm-hmm.
comic booky, as you say, what I mean,
Yeah.
making fun of the lizard again, you know. But then they saw that these were dangerous. That was the cool part about that. They realized, oh my God, funny as it sounds, these are actually very dangerous beings.
Yeah. Which I think makes things like Civil War so realistic. It's like, I don't know. Are you on Team Cap or are you on Team Tony Stark? Like, should superpowered beings be registered?
No.
So you're Team Cap, huh?
hmm And the reason being is because it's like being an atheist versus being a Christian. It doesn't stop you from being a good or terrible being.
Yeah, and arguably the people that would register would be good anyway. And
Exactly.
the people that wouldn't register are people that either for various reasons, like if I register, you're going to know my whole family, and my family doesn't even know. It's a bit like coming out of the closet, kind of, for some of that stuff. Might get in a little bit of trouble. I don't know. I vacillate. I think might be the word. I fluctuate. I go between two things. When it comes to registration or not registration, because there's a part of me that's like, oh, I think if you're like somebody of you're an Omega level mutant,
Yeah, you could destroy a planet,
maybe I
but
kind of wouldn't mind knowing that you're cool. I mean, because like an Omega level mutant, it's like, in the most recent sort of X-Men set of books, the whole Krakatoa era, um, you know, was, they terraform Mars because
well,
there's
the
some
one
mutants
thing,
that can do it. There are
well, the
mutants
one thing
that'll.
that gets me about Marvel to a degree. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say they terraform Mars. So I mean, Omega level mutants. I don't know. We might want to have some dibs on where they are, maybe a little.
Yeah,
But
but
go
I
on.
was
You were
thinking,
saying.
it's one of the things I don't like is that they try to put in political, and I'm not talking about left or right, and I ain't going there. Not talking about sexuality, I'm not going there. But I'm talking about like they had American Kaiju, which is basically a guy that's, for lack of a better term, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, except he could become a Godzilla-sized creature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he got in a fight with a symbiote,
Okay.
from Venom. And
Okay.
he destroyed a whole bunch of the tower, but he won. But the first thing is like, well, maybe I shouldn't use my power this way. It's like, that's the whole point of being a superhero, is that you are the good in this negative. It's not that you sat out there and want to kill, which, casually have because he got thrown or some other thing. It wasn't anything like that. That wasn't your mission. You were trying to stop it so it wouldn't kill more than that were killed.
Well, and those kinds of binary choices of good and evil are great, but I think that's one of the reasons why you get these deconstructions like Watchmen and Rising Sun. I think it was Rising Stars, Miracle Man, The Boys, any of those things that are like, hey, let's have some of this stuff change, um, because
what would it actually be like if someone had superpowers? And it probably would be real funky if someone had actually had superpowers, because there would be somebody, I mean, like the person that took a pot shot at Trump, if that was a mutant, then that would probably be a different situation now. So
one or two ways,
yeah,
because
one of
one, they
two
will
ways.
hunt down mutants.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of was the pretense for having the Mutant Registration Act, was the fact that they tried to assassinate a senator.
Yeah,
Um,
Kelly.
yeah, Senator Kelly. So burn issues again. But I mean, yeah, I think that yeah, I don't know. I'm still open on the registration thing. I'm trying to think of the other news that is happening. Oh, the sort of, I don't know if it's the 800-pound gorilla or the elephant in the room or the 800-pound elephant in the room. The Acolyte. Neither you nor
Yeah.
I have watched the Acolyte.
No,
Um,
we haven't.
I I kind of don't have any interest, but I mean, I really dug
It's one of the
Obi-Wan.
things is the obligation of our podcast. That's the problem.
Yes, I
So,
mean,
yeah,
to all
it's
of the ladies and gentlemen out there who are like, what exactly are Terrence and John thinking when it comes to the Acolyte? And it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have an opinion. I've heard a bunch of terrible things about it.
But see,
Um,
the problem is that, in my opinion,
mm-hmm,
it's not like Star Trek. And yes, I'm Star Trek, yes, to Star Wars, but I'm not even going that route. Okay.
mm-hmm.
I'm going the route that Star Trek, even if you didn't like it, most people who, when it comes to Star Trek, they either don't like an episode or they don't like a series. It's very
Sure.
simple. And I'm talking about if you're a Star Trek fan. Otherwise, you don't
Yeah,
like Star Trek at
people
all,
like
you like it.
there's people that like Deep Space Nine but don't like Voyager. There's people that like
Yeah,
the old Trek but don't like Next Gen. Yeah,
exactly. But
I get
Star
it.
Wars is
Hmm.
not at all that same. Star Wars is more of, you like the story of a character, or you like a direction, or you like background characters. You have this universe you like, but you don't like the universe as much as you like the universe. I know it's an oxymoron what I just said, or a double intuitive, but it's still the same. You don't like it, and yet you do. I mean, there are people like Darth Vader is supposed to be the most powerful character. And back when I played, the old D6 Star Wars, there were players who always wanted to be more powerful than Darth Vader because that was their claim to fame. And I was like, no, you can't do that, because while you were raising in power, he was working up too. He wasn't just sitting around.
Hmm. Well,
But
and I
I
think
was
that's
just
the. Oh, go on.
go ahead.
I
And
was
that's
just
the problem now with all the Star Wars stories.
Yeah, I think the problem with all the Star Wars stories is that, unlike Star Trek, there is like Star Trek, different episodes, different things, different series is different things. Whereas I think Star Wars wants to be a self-contained story. Like
Epic.
it does, it's an epic story. It doesn't really want to be like, oh, that's its own thing. There's no that's its own thing in Star Wars. Whereas, you can like Voyager and not like Next Gen, and you don't really need to know what happened in Next Gen aside from some basic alliances, or who are the enemies. I always want to say Kardashians, but it's actually the Cardassians. The Kardashians are the enemy.
But no, what you say is absolutely true, because it's the same thing. Best example is King Arthur.
Hmm.
Best example is King Arthur. You can take Merlin, the Hallmark TV series, like that, or
Hmm.
take Excalibur and like that, even though Merlin and it are essentially the same. Or you could like, you see what I'm saying? You could keep liking a separate one. You could like Camelot with Richard Harris and Robert Guay. But they're the same story ish.
Sure.
A branch of that tree, or a root of that tree, if you will. But Star Wars is entirely different because three things. One, they have too many people that's basically like corporate America. You have someone 20 something, 30 something, 40 something. I'm going to leave my mark.
Hmm.
And, you know, they leave their mark, but they don't know what they left.
Well, I think
I
part of
mean,
it
the,
is
the last
because
trilogy is a good example.
but I think part of it is because they kind of want the stories to be interconnected. They've sort of limited themselves. Like Star Trek is limitless because it's just you really could tell any story as long as you have a ship and a crew.
Mm.
Whereas in Star Wars, it's like, oh, okay, what's your relationship to the Force? Okay, well, that means you're a Sith, or that means you're a Jedi. Oh, you're not the Sith or Jedi. How does that fall into the lore? And so they've really cut themselves at the knees by trying to make a self-contained universe that is all the stories are interrelated. It's like you can't have Rogue One without having Star Wars, because that's what they did to get the plans. So everything's related. Han Solo is doing this. Okay, he had a kid and he's doing that. It's like they've just really wrecked themselves by having this galaxy that they really can't do much with, because they constantly have to reference Palpatine, the Skywalkers, the all of that stuff. And so of course people are going to be unhappy, because it's like, okay, we're going to tell the story of the Acolyte. It's not related to Darth Vader at all. It's before. But then people who are lore nerds are like, well, is this like KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic? Is this the Republic 1 or is this Republic 2? Is this? And so they've ruined it by making it so having to be interrelated.
Oh yeah, because I mean the best example of that is Star Trek Online versus Star Wars Galaxies, and what's the other Star Wars one they have? I mean Knights of the Old Republic, but I'm talking about the other.
Knights of the Old Republic was good. Battlefront, those, you're just in that. Those work because you're just in that world. You don't have to play somebody like Luke or Darth. You can just be some dude doing stuff. But
Yeah.
but again, I think that's one of the reasons I think arguably why there aren't any really. I can't say aren't any, but it's more difficult to make a Star Trek video game because Star Trek is too wide. I mean, how do you make a Star Trek video game? You'd have to then give it the kind of parameters you give Star Wars, and it's like, oh, okay, you gotta fight some Klingons. You gotta make an alliance with the Klingons, or you gotta fight you gotta team up with the Vulcans. You have to, you know what I mean? You have to.
You know what you say is true. That's why Star Trek Online, and that's what I was saying, is one of the few MMOs that's still around longer than 10 years. But their approach was that first of all, they let you make your own starship, and then you make your fleet and everything. But where I'm going with it is that this is again politicking. When they had Star Wars Galaxy, one of the biggest problems they had in the online game was that it was a crapshoot to be a Jedi, number one.
Sure.
I mean, you could work hard and hard and hard, but the Force wouldn't necessarily awakening you. And then they catered to the fans, which sometimes that's the dement to do that. And that's one of the examples is that they did do that. And, like the next season, as they call it, all of a sudden you could be a Jedi and you had this person that's been working at it for about 2 years and you just come in and get to be one. Of course, it's going to alienate you.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of made people upset about Rey. I think that I feel so bad for all of those people in the sequels. The
biggest mistake they did was they didn't, because I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a fan, but the biggest mistake they did is they were so busy pushing the new, they didn't give us like 3 to 10 minutes of the old being together. That's it. Just,
well, they
Luke
did
with Leia.
Yeah, they did. They had Han Solo and Leia talk for a bit, but it was so
I mean, the whole
perfunctory.
game together, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was so.
Londo, all of them together.
Yeah, it was. They really didn't execute it well, and I feel bad for those actors because I feel like they all got kind of screwed, basically.
They did. They did.
All of those actors, Daisy Ridley and what is it, John Boyega?
Yes, and
I'm not sure if
Fran,
that's his first name.
I forgot what her name was.
Adam Driver, all those people, they kind of screwed them over because they tried some things that I think they should have workshopped a little longer. They tried some things that were great, and they tried some things that weren't great, and they just messed over all of those people. And when you're in Star Wars, if you get a lot of hatred, your career is probably just about over. I mean, take a look at the guy that played Jar Jar Binks. He is just now not getting some other acting, getting his props, and having people not hate him and him not be suicidal. I mean, and I'm not mocking by any means his struggles with mental health, but I think that he did actually feel that.
Oh, he
Feel
did.
he did feel like self-harm. So, because they were so terrible to him and the character wasn't that great and it just turned into a big thing. And I just feel like if you're going to mess over those actors, and they did, I think they messed them over by jerking them around with different plots and different stories and trying half starts and everything else. I forgot the woman, the Korean woman, the actress. Please forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, for
Her last name was Tran. That I remember. I just don't remember her
yeah,
first
they
name.
totally the internet just destroyed that poor woman. And she was a perfectly fine character. It was a perfectly fine character. They didn't know what to do with her. And I think that there are people in Star Wars because of this rising enmity between the production set style of Star Wars and the fan base have this ongoing fight that these actors and actresses got caught up in and they were the collateral damage. And it's unfortunate. So, but that leads us to the fact that neither you, not really a Star Wars fan, or I, kind of a Star Wars fan, have watched The Acolyte. So the only way we can talk about The Acolyte is maybe I'll see it. I mean, I watched a bit of a show, what was it, Ashoka?
Yes,
I watched
yes.
a bit of that. I haven't finished Andor. I mean, I do like the world when it's properly executed, but I think
Well,
that's
I think one of
it's
the
tough.
problems I have with them is that, like Star Trek. Star Trek is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have an actor return, so you have a different actor. If you want to do that, okay, that's one. Or the character dies. Star Wars, if they don't want the character, all of a sudden they die.
Sure,
90% of the time, they just kill off the character, or they send them so far away they might as well be stuck in the seven hells of Dante.
sure,
You know, I mean,
sure.
and that is another irritation because, like, the biggest problem I think with Star Wars is they had was I think the Splinter's Eye. That was Alan
Splinter
Dean
in the Mind's
Foster's.
Eye.
Yes, that's it.
Uh-huh.
That was the first direct sequel to Star Wars, even though it was a paperback.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's great. And that's the thing is if you talk to hardcore Star Wars fans, I work with one. Uh, the lore of the books was really good, and I'm not quite sure why they didn't just make some of that stuff into the movies. They really could have. But I think people, like you say, they wanted to make their own mark, make their own stories, and maybe they didn't want to pay those writers, but some of the lore was pretty deep and well fleshed out, and they basically flushed it all down the toilet, you
I
know?
mean, they kind of did to the degree when they gave the illusion of Chewbacca being killed in
Mm-hmm.
the first of the new trilogy. But because one of the paperbacks, he does get killed by a moon of all things. You know, literally, he can't escape the moon, and the moon blows up with him on it. So okay, but my point is this: is that you have so many worlds, as we said earlier about the DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
You are just jading people by telling them, yeah, you know what, that doesn't count anymore. What? Because so many people were upset about, the twins,
Mm-hmm.
Leia and Han's twins,
Mm-hmm.
not being in the movie,
Sure.
and then making Ben be this brute. And I think they would even accepted that somehow him and Ray did get together and have a kid or something. Because you see that in some of the re-edits, people
Mm-hmm.
go do it, their own little variation using AI and everything. And those get a lot of applause. It's like, this is how it should have ended.
Sure.
And what Disney's not hearing is you should not have a property that you make so many people want to do that.
Sure. And I think that they really could. I mean, I think there's a woman, it's the producer or the head, the CEO or
Kennedy,
whatever. Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy or something like that. I think
yes.
that there's just been this ongoing enmity between her and the fans and back and forth stuff that is just getting in the way of the property. And I think that, I mean, uh, I think that the stuff that I've told people, it's like all they had to do was make Ray bad and make Adam Driver's character Ben turn good and
And
have him
Saber.
and then him have to try and save her. But then people were like, "Oh, that might be a White Knight thing." But I mean, you know what it would be like to have this character that you've watched for a few movies just all of a sudden go to the dark side? I mean, that's huge. That would have been really had some dramatic impact. But they have made a point of not taking risks even when they are trying to look like they're taking a risk. It's like,
Well,
oh, we're going to have a lead female character. That's not that big of risk, really.
you
People
know, that's
would
one of the
watch
things
that.
that I want to get into for half a second. Because I mean, by getting 20th Century Fox, you of course had the first sci-fi, Ripley.
Hmm.
Okay, as far as final girl or woman or person
Sure.
who's a strong character. But what they don't understand, and we've seen this in Marvel first, that's why I mention it. And we see
Hmm.
it in Star Wars. And that is, unless it's Darth Vader or Palpatine, they really don't like too many strong male characters in Star Wars. They like them to have, like the Mandalorian. Yeah, he's a strong character, but he's still basically a father. You understand?
Hmm.
Because in the last movie they tore down Paul. You remember
Hmm.
they tore him down
Hmm.
because none of that cowboying in or anything like that. That's part of what made Star Wars great is that you had the three groups. You had the Han Solo-ish, the cowboy.
Sure.
You had the
The
person
pirate
who
cowboy, yeah.
you had the innocent that was going to do right and in the end might do evil even though they're doing right. Luke,
Sure. The hero
you
of a thousand faces.
right, and then you have the person like Leia who they weren't innocent, but they were made to do things that they just wouldn't do before.
Well, and I thought
Yeah.
that that was another thing that I didn't particularly care for completely when it came to how they handled uh, Leia as a character. I think she was this strong character in the first two movies, and then they just sort of made her necessary to get saved in the third. And,
Well, that made sense that she was trying to save her man, her person,
sure.
and her
Well,
guard was down. That's
sure.
what I mean. Her guard was
That's
down. She
true.
didn't think it through.
That's true. So I mean, they did. That's true. They didn't. They never really discounted her as a character completely, which is good. So, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think I got into a long discussion with the Star Wars fan at work, and basically, it's not that because I mean, we back and forth on this whole notion of woke seems to be really a big issue with when it comes to the acolyte and Star Wars in general. It's that not anything that feels forced, like you have said, not organic is kind of forced. And it's not that these things that are forced make bad stuff worse. In other words, there's plenty of things that in like the new Fallout story, you have a black main character, a female main character, all these things that would be signifiers of being woke, but no one complained about that because A, it wasn't forced, and B, it was a good story. So some of it has to do with which came first? Is it woke and bad, or was it bad and now the criticism that gets leveled at it is that it's woke? And that seems to be what's happening with the Acolyte. Because I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Well, see,
I
to me, what you say is absolutely true. But you want to compare it to Fallout? I'll go back to the Green Lanterns or even mutants in this one sense: is that all the subpar groups, as far as being represented, can have that representation just by being a trooper, a Sith, a Jedi, a Gray, even though Disney doesn't want to recognize that. You know, they can be an adept. There's so many things they can do
mm-hmm,
without having to cater to a group and just have it be in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be a person who they have the force ability and they're very good with their money because of force ability, but they don't know that they're using the force,
Yeah.
you know, and that be just a background character, and just enjoy it that way. Because I mean, we all have seen a story in Star Wars, Star Trek, or whatever that we want to see a specific character's further adventures or how they came to be
Mm-hmm.
before they died. We all
Mm-hmm.
have had that. But the problem with Disney is while they want to cater to it, they always want to give an explanation. And one of the things as old blerds we have known is sometimes some people are just evil. That's it. There was no their puppy died or their parent was beaten or something before them. They are just bad, horrible people. And there's no redemption. And one of the things is now Star Wars, they want to redempt, to explain this character and that character. Is like, no, he was a butt at the beginning, he's a butt now.
Sure. Well,
Like
I
you
think
said once about Hitler, it doesn't matter that he was good to his dog, is what he did in the end that mattered.
sure. And I think that they just got stuck in the redemption paradigm because of Darth Vader and Anakin, and that's the story that they tell, and so that they constantly are kind of milking that trope. And there's other stories you can tell. I think the Mandalorian's first season and second season kind of did that. They could show that you can tell other stories. You can make things like a space western, like Firefly. And that's, I think, that's the only thing that's going to fix Star Wars is that you've got to get yourself out of having to tell stories of necessarily of Jedi and Sith, you know?
I won't even go there. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, but I mean, back to the Disney thing is shot first. One of the best examples.
Yeah, exactly.
The
So,
seriousness now. George changed it because, well, he wanted Han to be a hero. But you and I both know as story freaks and character caring of the character, he wasn't a very good person.
no,
But
he
by
had to
being around those people, he became good.
it was a den of scum and villainy that that they found him in. He was at Mos
Exactly.
Eisley. Nothing but criminals there. Nothing
Right.
but criminals there. He was a criminal. It's okay for him to shoot first because he later showed his heroism by clipping the wings of Darth Vader's TIE fighter so that Luke could destroy the Death Star. He had his
Exactly.
redemption arc. You needed to make him bad first. That was dumb. Hand shot first. Here it is. Fixed Star Wars. Hand shot first. Well, so I guess that's the news for at least this little bit of time. That's about it for us. We've been talking for an hour. I'm sure. I hope it was entertaining for all of our subscribers and listeners. Certainly was entertaining for me, but I am going to have to wrap it up, I think. So any plans for nerd stuff next week?
Well, I wanted to go to the Godzilla Con, but I didn't have the money to go take a plane and get a hotel and do all the other stuff.
Yeah,
So no.
Chicago would be tough. If my life ever gets freer, we can road trip and get there because I wouldn't mind going to something like that. Yeah, I think the only thing that's coming up for me is probably Nandescon in DK, the anime festival that happens here in Colorado, but that's September, so it's a ways.
I was going to say, isn't that September?
Yeah, that's a ways. That's the only thing that's going on for me. Taste of Colorado's got to be coming up pretty soon just to eat. Are you going to go to
Yeah,
the
because I mean
Renaissance
they have
Festival?
they have the Renaissance Festival, and then they have two horror cons coming up, plus another Galaxy Con.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. As far as the HorrorCon, there's a contest, I think, to enter a filmed piece for a contest, and Kurt and I have written a script that we're going to enter in that horror contest.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, we got the actors and everything. I've finished writing, editing a little bit of the script that he had started. I finished it up, did some different things with it, and it should be good. I won't give away what the subject is because I want people to see it when they go to the horror convention. So,
That'd be
but
good.
we're going to film something hopefully in the next week or two, film it, be done. I suppose if we need some extras, which we might need for a scene where people are leaving a party, you certainly could be part of that and just it's basically shambling out as they finish playing their D&D game. So
Oh, sure. I'm definitely there.
yeah, so I'll let you know when we start doing that. But that's coming up too, to film that, to enter that horror contest. So, but where can people find you?
DrakeStorm@gmail.com.
Drakestorm@gmail.com. DRAKESTORM at gmail.com. And you can catch me at Drupgu, DRUPGYU108 at gmail.com, or That's So Quantum at gmail.com. And check out the That's So Quantum channel. See what's there. We're uploading, obviously, this podcast will be at all of your podcast locations, Apple and all that sort of stuff. So subscribe, like, send us a line. And if you're doing something cool, if you're a cosplayer, if you're a Lego person like Etienne, if you're doing anything cool, we can have you on. We can interview you, and you can have your 5 minutes of fame, because we only have maybe 10 minutes left of fame to split between the two of us. So you would get your chunk of possible YouTube/Apple iTunes notoriety. So drop us a line at either of those locations. And like we like to say here, don't be a stranger.
Don't be strange.
And check us out in all the places, and have a good week. Hopefully we'll see you and do some recording next week. Bye.
Bye.